Okay, guys. So, first things first. Let me just give you a quick overview. A couple of things have happened overnight that I just want to have a quick mention on, and then you can jump into any questions you have. So, first things first. You can see SPY is down 0.5% pre-market, which is kind of unusual in one way because Google or Alphabet came out last night, smashed their earnings, and are up 8% pre-market. We also had positive news overnight with, it looks like China and the US have an agreement in place for trade relations, which is positive. So kind of lots of positive stuff going on, but the futures are showing down 0.5%. Just jumping into those earnings very quickly. If we go into Alphabet there, for example, you can see it's up 7.5%. So the pre-market trade doesn't even show here on the chart because it's exponentially rising. So just on that while I'm on it, because it's in our long-term portfolio, it's going to open up close to $300 now, somewhere in and around that. My view is I just continue to hold it. I hold on to the stock because I think there'll be upgrades coming down the line. It might, what I will say to you is, with that in mind, right, it's probably going to give up some of those gains and come back around, maybe even to the 260 level, right? Look, we don't have that crystal ball here right now. When you invest in a stock like Alphabet, right from the outset, I said this is one we're probably going to hold for a long, long time. And the valuation multiples I have on this are still the lowest of all the Magnificent Seven stocks. So we haven't really attributed massive multiples or anything like that. So whilst there's probably going to be some profit taken over the next week or so, it's impossible to say. And like that, in the previous time we had the jump here, I was saying hold on to the stock. We could have looked for profit taking here and it didn't pull back at all. It just kept foraging higher. So it's impossible to time that, in my opinion, and you're better off just holding it for the long term. So that stock is now nearly up 100% since we bought it. So we've doubled our money in a very short period of time on that one. And my view is to continue to hold it. And just from personal experience, and this is when you're talking about investing in stocks, in my opinion, it's always great to invest in stocks that you really understand what they're offering and their products and services. You're not just looking at numbers. So for me, I kept talking to you about that. I'm a user of the Google Business Suite, the workspace, and I'm using their AI and what's coming down the tracks. And I seen the value in it, and just from my own personal use of the product. So everybody always associated Google with just being an advertising company, and it's making a hell of a lot of money advertising through obviously the Google platform and YouTube and everything else that goes with it. But there are way more to that. And, mention Waymo in there as well. We know that, that's just growing now at a rapid pace and rolling out at a rapid pace with Europe being targeted for next year. And then, of course, you have the growth in their AI suite as well, and not to mention quantum computing that's coming down the tracks too. So that's why I'd be a fan of holding on to Alphabet and just expect a pullback. It's going to happen. I don't know when, but it will happen. But my view is the earnings estimates and the revenue estimates for Google are going to continue to increase as over the next next period of time. The only thing that would counter my argument is if we had some sort of a big bang recession in the US or something like that, that would cause the valuation multiples to all fall, and that would be across the board. But for now, I'd be holding on to the stock. So any questions on that, guys? Is everybody happy with that? I assume you're happy if you're owning Alphabet. The other one that's reported overnight, and that's gone the opposite way, is Meta. So we've seen this story before, guys. See, it's down 10%. Now, we've been here before. This is where Meta, again, their CapEx spending, and by the way, Alphabet said their CapEx spending on AI has gone up, and so has Meta. The Meta sold off heavily on the news because it kind of came in slightly under target, right? So the stock is getting punished. This happened before years ago when they were considering to be overspending on the metaverse. But the stock rallied and continued to rally. So I would let this play itself out, guys, and put Meta then on your radar as a potential buy down the line. I wouldn't buy into it today because we don't know how low this is going to go. It's come back to the 200-day moving average in pre-market. So it's down at 675. If it starts tipping down into the low 600s, for example, I would consider that for your long-term portfolio, you know. So that's Meta. Any questions on Meta? No. Okay. So back to, so they're the two I wanted to mention, two big earnings overnight. You know, Alphabet up 8%, Meta down 10%. You couldn't be any more diverse than that. So just looking at the Magnificent Seven, you can see I think Tesla were down bigger at one stage here, but a lot of these are kind of trending up here. So one thing I wanted to make you aware of, I started a long put option course, and it'll be ready probably later today. It's like the long call one, and I used NVIDIA as an example. And my own view is, if you think that, look, you know what, there might be a little bit of exhaustion, look at the way the meta trade has reacted. So if there's a bit of exhaustion starting to creep into this trade, maybe we get some sort of a pullback in NVIDIA, and maybe a long put option would be a way to go. So I did an example of the 280 input, which was in the money on it, and with a break even, I think it was around 190. So like if you felt, you know what, NVIDIA might give up some of the gains and come back, I don't know, to 170-ish, 160-ish, that could be a trade you could look at there. So the course is almost complete. The first 5 modules are up, and you can find it in our website at the moment. I'm going to complete the last module today. So I'll just show you, if you go into courses here, you'll see the long put option there. And you can see here, the first 5 are populated. The last one I need to populate, and I'll do that later today, okay? And I would appreciate if you could do, when you're watching those videos, if you can give it a like and a share, it'd be great. It just helps with the viewership and attracting more viewers, and trying to promote that channel, okay? Okay, guys, let me hand it over to you guys. Start any questions on positions and trades that we're looking at. All righty. Crude oil, just to mention here, just on crude oil, I'm holding off on crude oil. I want to zoom in here. I love this trade. This is kind of your new SPY trade as such, but I just want to bring to your attention, this is still creating a series of lower highs. So if we join these tops, for example, here, right? You can see what I'm talking about. This is kind of it's a clear down channel. You know what I mean? On a, let's call it an intermediate basis, right? And we've kind of just tipped up to the top of that down channel, right? And we've pulled back a little bit here. Now, one of two things is going to happen, and we don't know which. It's either going to pop out of the channel and start trading above this 50-day moving average. If that happens, you could probably suggest that this downtrend is over. But right now, we can't really say that for certain. And here's my issue, just with jumping in again right now. We're creating these lower lows again. If you can see it here, even yesterday's low was lower than the previous day. And today, I just want to check where we're at now. Today's low has just created a new low. So if you look at the low here yesterday, it was 59.70. The low today is 59.68. I know it's only by 2 cents, but we're taking out previous lows all the time. And the concern I have is that we might revisit back down here again, and we'd be missing out on a great opportunity to actually basically generate even more premium on a put option trade there, you know. So if I jumped in here very quickly to crude oil, I looked at trades, option chains and crude oil. So what I'd be looking at here, folks, is it depends. If we're going for the lower strike, I'll probably go out to the December expiry, which is about 47 days for the January futures contract, right? So if we actually come down now and look at, for example, the 52 level, you're generating here about $560 a contract. So that trade there would have a probability of profit of about 90%, okay? So that trade is not too bad, but we're going to get even more. My point is, this will get if crude oil kind of revisits back down at the 56 level. That's what I'm trying to say. You might get $1,000 a contract on that, you know. And if we went down as low as 50, at the minute we're getting $370 a contract. That has a 94% probability of profit. So that's the one I would prefer to give myself some leeway here, guys, just in case things don't pan out. And you know what? We might get up to the $500 or $600 per contract mark if crude oil starts to fall. It's kind of what I'm waiting on here. Okay. I just wanted to mention that to you. Any questions on that on crude oil? No. Okay. And then finally looking at SPY. Just looking at SPY as in potential of a new trade. So we let the existing trade play itself out. Okay, so that's in profit. Unless there's some disaster over the next while, I don't see that getting into trouble. So I kind of be going out another nearly into the Christmas period, to be honest. Even out to the December 19th expiry and looking there, maybe going down. At the 620 level, what are you getting? So if this sell-off here continues, it might create as an opportunity. Like even though you're getting 0.5%, that was on yesterday's close. So today that's going to be up. The Greeks will tell you there, if the thing is down $3, delta is 30. So you're probably going to get about 350 on that, right? For the move down today. So it's $350 a contract. Now, I would obviously much prefer to be getting about 1% in for that. So what I'm saying is, if over the next few days SPY starts to continue to fall, I'd probably be looking at the December expiry for SPY again, but down around the 620 strike. If you felt, look, it's not going to get anywhere near there, there's nothing wrong with you coming up to the 630 or even the 640 on it again. You know, it's just everybody will have their own point of view on that one. Personally, I think the market is more than fairly valued right now. I think it's probably going to forage higher and test 7,000 at some stage. But it wouldn't surprise me if we landed somewhere between 6,500 and 7,000 when all is said and done at the end of the year. And that's why I want to be below that level on these short puts, you know. So that's kind of what I'm eyeing up next on SPY. I hope that makes sense. And then finally, yeah, jump in.
Just on that, would you just let the VIX let it play lower if the VIX play higher if the SPY is going to go lower, and then place that trade?
So you want the VIX to go higher?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely, definitely. Like that's what I'm saying here, right? So when I say when I look at the SPY chart, if SPY starts to fall, you're going to see the VIX start to rise a hell of a lot more, you know. So if VIX starts getting over 20, great, and then it might be worth a trade then. So again, we keep talking about this IV rank here. So if you look at the SPY IV rank on the options, it's at 13 at the moment. That's very low. That's telling you the implied volatility in your option premium is quite low. We would much rather see that rank closer to 70 or something like that. That means we're getting paid nicely for actually taking on the trade. So that all links back to what you're talking about, Roy, which is the VIX. And for people who are new and don't understand that, the VIX is think of it as a fear index. It's a measure of volatility in options. And when the VIX is high, that's when it's usually time to buy. So we want to be selling put options here when the VIX is extremely high, not when it's down here. So absolutely, we're not getting paid great premium right now. But what I will say is, if this turns off into a bigger set-off, so let's say the narrative switches. Let's say the narrative switches to, oh, do you know what? These mega cap companies are spending way too much in AI, like Meta. Maybe that starts a sell-off. And we know that these have dragged up the market in a big way. I mean, Apple has gone up to what? Was it 4 trillion or 5 trillion? I can't remember what. So my point is that if these start to recalibrate lower, the whole market is coming down. And if that happens, the VIX will go up. So I know it was a long-winded answer, Roy, but in answer to your question, yes.
Yeah.
Preferably VIX will be well over 20 when we're doing that.
Okay. And would you let the market say open, let it settle for about an hour and see which way it's going before you make a decision?
Do you know what, Roy? That is a fantastic question. And the answer to that is I have done that in the past 2 or 3 occasions, and it's cost us.
Mhm.
And what I'm talking about there is, right, I just want to share this with you because it really is a brilliant question. There was one night I was looking, the futures were well down, and they ended, I think it was here, this day here. So I don't know if you can see that candle here. So the futures, I like, just to give you an idea of what this is in percentage terms, like that was like a 2% swing in the futures in one day, this one candle here, right? So I remember the futures were down 1.5% and the option premiums were great. So I was in looking at trading the options on the futures on SPY. So, you know, if I went to the, for example, the E-minis, for example, here. So I'm not saying to do this, right? But I'm just trying to give you an idea. When you go in here in pre-market, these trade 24/5 because they're options on futures. So in the pre-market, like when we were looking at, which was about 4 hours, in that scenario, the premium we were getting was absolutely significantly, you know, it was great. And I said, you know what, I'm going to let this market play itself out throughout the day and see, does it even exacerbate? Does the sell-off continue? And surely enough, it didn't. It actually turned into a rally. The market actually ended up going up. So that's where it costs us. So in answer to your question, previous to the most recent times, I would have said yes, especially for you guys. If you're only going to do it on SPY, you have to wait anyway until the US market opens because it's an ETF. But personally, myself, if I see big down days in the market and I'm not too worried about the news that's out, I'd probably take advantage of the spike in option premium in the futures options, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So if you've already waited, Roy, in answer to your question, and you're going to trade SPY, it's no harm in waiting an hour. Let things play itself out. See, does the sell-off intensify?
Yeah.
But at some stage, it's like everything. You've got to pull the trigger when you feel it's right. And always remember this. Make sure when you're selling a put option that, you know what, if you were assigned, would you be okay with that? So if I'm selling the 640 in SPY, if I get assigned, am I okay with that? And you're never really going to maximize your premium. It's very hard to time that as well, you know?
No, it's just I did a dummy trade last night and I sold the 630 put, but the premium was only $140 compared to, what was it, $300 you showed us there.
Yeah, that's how quick that can all change. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, thanks, Stephen.
No problem. Any other questions on that, folks? No, okay. Just want to shift over to silver and gold. So something similar to what we're looking at with crude oil, just in terms of lower lows. So you can see, look, that's your chart in gold. There's no doubt about it, gold is in an uptrend, right? And again, just to remind you, when I got to here, when I was writing this, I was saying, guys, this melt up here, if the anxiety over the market, which was starting to build at this stage, dissipates, expect maybe profit taking in gold. And we've got a lot of profit taking in gold. Having said all of that, I think there will be another attempt at that high. There usually is, okay? But as long as we're seeing lower lows, I will be concerned. Now, yesterday wasn't a lower low. It was the first time that a lower low wasn't created. But we're back to creating lower lows today. And therefore, I'm still not a fan of jumping in on the gold trade just now. Now, that's just me being conservative. I think over time, if we were patient enough, even if it fell, if we bought in today, we'd make, what, about 10%. But I think this could fall another 5 to 10% in my view. So if you look at it from here, where it is today, it come down to this, let's call this your support area down here. That's 13%. And that would be gold still in a firm uptrend. So that's why I'm calling this support here. It's this common area here of trading. you know, after rallies, this is where it normally migrates back to. You might consider this here as well a normal area. You know what I mean? Where there was a lot of consolidation going on. So it could be this point where you decide to start buying in and average in, or you might wait till it gets down here, and it might never get down there. That's the challenge you face. But if I'm buying in here, I would expect at a minimum at least a retest of the high, or 50% from this level to the high. So in other words, from the high here, let's call that high, let me just get it here. It was 4,400, let's say. And let's say you got in down here to 3,500. I would be expecting a minimum of a 400-point jump from here at some stage, which is 10%. And that's why I'm waiting. That's the reason why I'm waiting on gold. And it's the exact same story with silver. No different in silver. I suppose the only difference is today we haven't created a lower low yet, which is interesting, you know. So how could you trade them is the big question as well. By the way, folks, you can use 2 ETFs, which is simple for you. So you can trade the futures if you want, or you can buy GLD, which is an exchange traded fund, which tracks gold prices, and SLV is an exchange traded fund that tracks silver prices. So you can do it either of those 2 ways. Other ways you can do it while we're waiting around, I don't think it's time yet. We could start looking at selling put options on the gold ETF. So this is where you say, right, okay, I'm not happy to own gold now, but you know what, if it did fall 10%, I would own it in the future. The problem is a 10% drop from here, let's call that, it's at 365 is 36. So you're talking about the 330 strike. The premiums are terrible. So you can't really, we probably needed to move. If we went out to the December the 19th, let's see what they are. Even if we went down to 340, maybe that's as low as we go down. We're getting slightly under 1%. So you're getting paid $277 a contract for agreeing to buy gold, the gold ETF at 340, which is what, $25 cheaper than where it's at. So you're talking about probability of profit there. It's probably going to crop up now. It's not showing up. That probability of profit there has to be over 80%, I would imagine. So that is a way of doing it. If you said, look, no, I like gold and I want to participate now. I'm not prepared to wait, but I want to participate maybe in a least risky way. This is the best way I can think of. Personally, myself, I would like to wait. There's something telling me there's a potential for this to drop further. As this risk off trade, think about it. China and the US shaking hands, a lot of risk off stuff starting, or in terms of the premium for stress, let's call it, that's starting to come out of the trade, in my opinion. And there might be more to come. And that's what I'm concerned about. And that's why I just want to wait, because you'll get a hell of a lot more premium, even if this drops 2 or 3% from here. For that, 340 or 330 put, you get a lot more premium. And I think that would be a better way to go, in my view. Yeah. So look at that. You're talking about even that 200-day, even down to here, that's 349 down to the 50-day moving average. Like, I think that could come down to 320 to 330. That's my view on the ETF, and that's why I'm waiting. So 1 or 2 ways you can play this. You can simply wait, and then when the time comes, buy call options on these. You can keep it that simple. So if you didn't want to use up your capital, you can buy call options. Or you can go long on the futures price, whichever you decide. But right now, I just be careful. That's all I'm saying here. On the positive side, for people who are already in gold, every time RSI has come down into this little channel here, it's rebounded. So we might have hit the low again. I'm not Nostradamus. It's impossible to time this. I do think the high, but I just don't like it here for the reasons I stated earlier on. Any questions on that? Okay, folks, any questions at all on any trades, on anything that you need some clarification on?
What's your view, Stephen, on Alaska?
I would hold. Earnings weren't good, Pat.
Yeah.
And they've had a software glitch as
Yeah,
well.
that's right.
It's very similar to Southwest Airlines, but I'd hold on to the stock here. So even with that, as it turns out, our timing was too early, right? There's no doubt about it. But even with that, if you look at it, we're at a support level here. Domestic air travel, the demand is still there in the US, at least at this moment in time. And certainly the valuation reflects, let's say, the poor earnings and also their software glitch. So look, it's certainly not light at the moment. My thing would be, when do I buy more of it? If I did buy more of it, or you could buy a call option to double up your position without actually using up any more capital on the stock itself, you know? So I would stick with it personally myself. I think it's going to be like a Southwest Airlines. And if I bring up a chart of Southwest Airlines, so I need to bring it back when this was all happening. I think it was around this period of time. Like, that was a severe drop. It was something similar. Market wasn't happy with it. It dropped like 40%, but pretty much regained it all back in a short period of time. I think Alaska's going to be something similar. The question is, where's the low on it? You know, so I'm not a fan of a stock like Alaska just dumping it, because I believe in it for the medium and long term. Short term, if this support doesn't hold, what I will say to Pat is, be prepared for $35, you know, and that's the only thing I will say. If this area here doesn't hold, I would nearly say without doubt we're going to $35. But I would just pick up more at that level and just see it as a medium to longer term play.
Very good. Thank you.
Any other questions, guys? No? Okay, so I'm just going to summarize. Just on Alphabet there, we've had a nice big win on that. Stick with it, in my opinion. Will there be a sell-off in the near future? More than likely. Timing it, impossible. I think this is only the start for Alphabet, and I think, I'd stick with this for the long term. Everything is positive about their earnings. Absolutely everything is positive. As regards Meta, loving this sell-off here. Absolutely loving it. And would fancy a bit of this if we got down into the low 600s. So not ready to jump into it just yet, but loving the sell-off here. This has happened before with Meta, and I think it might be just creating an opportunity to get back into the stock. Then on to our crude oil trade. Just reminding you, we're waiting on these lower lows to stop in the short term here, but we're getting ready to go out to the December contract. At the minute, avoid up to 52 strike, but more often, I would much prefer the $50 strike. So we're just waiting. We're just waiting on that, and of course, I'll let you know. And then on SPY, loving this sell-off on SPY. If option premiums drop substantially, strikes below 340, preferably 320-ish for me, that will be my next trade. And I've no problem putting that trade on, by the way, whilst my existing 640 trade is still open. So I would have no issue with that, because we'll be able to roll out that 640 trade very, very quickly and easily if it gets under any type of pressure. But loving this sell-off. You might see a trade on SPY coming from me later on in the week. Well, it's Thursday now. Friday, you never know how bad this sell-off gets. And we'll see what happens there. And then just being patient on gold and silver. Is that okay, guys? Unless you have any questions there, I'm going to wrap it up.
Very good.
Okay, folks, we leave it there. And as per usual, you know where I am if you need any assistance. Just reach out. Take it easy, guys. Cheers, guys. Bye now.